welcome to True Talk on WMNF 88.5. The show hosted by Samar and Ahmed Bedier. I'm Ahmed Bedier. Samar will be joining us shortly. We'll be speaking today about the news that shocked the world, the election results that has shocked so many people. I wasn't necessarily that surprised. I felt like Trump had this momentum going. I did not think that he was going to win in such a big way. I knew it was going to be tight. And I even felt like even if it was too close, he was going to claim victory anyway. And but now none of that, as far as being a contested election, that's not happening because it looks like he may even win the popular vote. The first president-elect to do that first Republican to do that in some 20 years. Summer and I will be speaking about what the results of the election and Trump's winning, what impact it will have on foreign policy, specifically about the Middle East, and the ongoing genocide in Gaza, where Israel is not relenting. They're continuing to bomb and kill women and children and infrastructure and hospitals, especially in North Gaza, where hundreds of thousands are now trapped and starving, where Israel is not allowing food or any humanitarian aid to get in. What will happen now during this transition period while our government here is busy with the transition? Will they escalate their agenda and the genocide, or will they slow it down? We'll also try to take some of your phone calls, that and more. And when we come back, this is True Talk on WMNF 88.5 FM.
رضيت والدينا ايه وينك يا حنينة ايه تفرقنا مشينا ايه وقلت يا حزرة ما حلينا ذراري الدنيا محلاها ماما وزينها ديما مواتها محلاها الحومة ديما الحومة مظلومة قتلتنا الشيخة وزادت قتلتنا الحكومة فكرت اللمة إيه قسمنا اللي فما إيه وكل حد وهمه إيه وكنا محلنا واليوم زمامة إيه وبكات الماما إيه خشومات في الشمة إيه شكون اللي بلانا صحابي حبوا على خرابي عطيتهم مترابي فرشوش وكفرشنا زرابي عيب على روحي ما نعيبش على قرابي رقدت ونحلم وفكت نجري على سرابي وفي غيبوبة ايه وينك يا صحوبة ايه وطلعوا ذيوبة ايه وناس خوانا بيوتنا مقلوبة إيه وطالب بالتوبة إيه ويام محسوبة.
Welcome back to True Talk on WMNF 88.5 with Ahmed and Samar. That's Balti, Ya Hasra, Tunisian rap artist. And I opened with this guy a lot on her show. I don't know, I like that song. Back to the election. That's shocking people around the world, and now the blame game is happening. Everybody's pointing fingers, especially the Democrats, on why Harris lost again. And it's not because of lack of funding, that's for sure. Kamala Harris raised her campaign had $1 billion and spent about $900 and almost $1 billion, becoming one of the most expensive campaigns of all time, combined with outside what's called super PAC or outside groups, allied groups. It was a combined total of $1.6 billion. Trump, on the other hand, raised $381 million, something like a little bit over a third of what Harris raised, and spent $345 million. But with combined outside money from super PACs, it was a combined $1 billion on Trump's side, so about $600 million less than Hillary, and they spent a combined total of also around $1 billion. Of course, the outside money, part of it is coming from Elon Musk's PAC, which was $130 million. Before going on the show, my producer, one of our producers here, said that the billionaires are running things, which is probably true. And he mentioned Elon Musk. Well, Elon Musk did put in $130 million of his own. However, on the hair society, billionaires were also backing her. The majority of the billionaires, she had more billionaire support than Trump did, yet still lost. Now, Samar is with me now live. Samar, were you surprised by the results?
Assalamu alaikum, Ahmed, and hello to all our listeners and supporters. I was surprised, Ahmed, like you said, at the margin of winning. I thought maybe it's going to be a close call. I thought maybe it will be a repeat of what happened 4 years ago. I didn't really expect the winning to be with that huge margin. But to be honest with you, I was almost certain that he will win.
What indication? Why were you so certain that he's going to win? Because it seemed like the media was spreading all this news that his campaign is in panic. He seems down, that he's looking at a loss. And there was this news about this Iowa poll that came out a few days right before the election, like on Saturday, saying that Iowa, which was supposed to be expected to go for Trump, that somehow the Seltzer poll there that's really reliable showed that Iowa would go to Harris, that she was up by 3 percentage points. And that was, people saw that as somehow an indication that she would win. Of course, that did not happen. That Seltzer Iowa poll turned out to be completely wrong, and Trump won Iowa. But why did you feel certain that he was going to win somehow?
I'm going to tell you about something happened to me about maybe 4 or 5 months ago. I can't recall. But my roof was destroyed from Ian, the hurricane that happened 2 years ago. Anyways, we were eventually able to find a contractor to change the roof. This gentleman, Ahmed, is young, in his mid-30s. He's Hispanic, wasn't born here, maybe came here 8-9 years ago. He has a decent house, very, very decent house, car. He travels, and so he was showing me on his phone the different tiles. And while he was scrolling his phone, I saw a couple of Trump things. So I looked at him and I said, "Why do you have a Trump thing on your phone?" He says, "I love the guy." I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, I love him." I said, "But he's always like saying bad things about minorities and you Hispanic people in particular." He says, "I don't care. I was doing better business, and I was paying less for groceries." And mind you, this is somebody who is very, very, very comfortable. Okay, average roof he fixes is between $150,000 to $200,000, so he has a good cut. And 1/3 of people work with him probably don't have permits to work. And that made me realize that we may misjudge people because Trump might say something negative about Puerto Ricans, or somebody in his campaign might say something negative. But at the end of the day, people are thinking of their economy, about how much they are paying at the grocery stores, how much they were, for instance, impacted by closures during COVID, how much less money they are making during the Biden administration, or how much less the money they are making is doing it. So at the end of the day, you and I may look at things from an elitist point of view, not necessarily.
I'm not looking from
not you, but maybe the pundits.
Okay,
for instance,
pundits.
I'll give you one more example. When, for instance, he says the weirdest stuff, like from movies or God, where he goes on a tangent. Again, let me talk about myself. I would say, oh my God, is he becoming senile? Is this a memory issue? Average people find it funny and relatable.
Okay.
And I live in a city that is always going Republican in voting, and 90% of people I know are Republicans, and they don't see the things that might upset me as upsetting to them. So that made me learn a lesson from the last when he won, and it was a surprise for me to start and think and put myself in the shoes of those who voted for him.
Right.
So I am surprised.
Well, I felt that that the momentum after all the enthusiasm around her replacing Biden, she had this huge bump in the polls, and the media was consolidating behind her and kept promoting the possibility of the historic win for the first woman president and the first Black woman and Indian woman, and it would all be these first. And a lot of it was focused on identity politics. But once they started campaigning, it was again the same message of 2020. And even the same message of 2016, well, vote for us because we're not Trump, and not necessarily talking about issues that were impacting everyday people. So I thought Trump, but later on, when she started doing that, things were switching, and Trump started having the momentum. But then I had my second thoughts after that Madison Square Gardens rally where the opening act, this comedian made the comment about Puerto Rico being, an island of garbage. And of course, the media pushed this narrative that somehow, as if Trump himself had said it, but it was all over. And Puerto Ricans were upset, and Bad Bunny and all these, and Jennifer Lopez and other Latinos came out and immediately endorsed Harris. And people thought that, and especially in Pennsylvania, where there's 500,000 Puerto Rican voters, that would tilt the scales. So yeah, I had my concerns, but as it got closer, I felt either Trump still had the advantage, or if it's too close, they had this backup plan to somehow again do what they did in 2020 by trying to deny the certification and then push it to the House. But one thing, on the night of the election itself, I was looking at Georgia and North Carolina. I felt like if they went to Trump, then she can't recover, because those were the ones that get reported early on. And once that happened, I felt like there's no chance she can come back. But even before that, the margin that she won Florida was much bigger than anyone anticipated. And it happened so fast and by such a huge margin, especially also in South Florida. That gave an indication that things are not going well for her, because, of course, there are a lot of Puerto Ricans and a lot of Latino voters in Florida itself. And the fact that it wasn't even close showed that, he had the momentum and it was going to be a better night for him. But we want to talk, Samar, more about the foreign policy specifically and the immigrant vote and, the votes outside, white and Black. But even talking about foreign policy, how it impacted, because one of the biggest differences this time around, of course, as you know, Harris underperformed everywhere compared to Biden in 2020. But the more drastic underperformance, of course, came from white males, or males in general, not just white, even Hispanic and Black men voted in bigger numbers for Trump than they did for Biden. But one specific category is the young voters between the ages of 18 and 29. That was the biggest shift. And it wasn't just the men, it was also women that shifted. And she got a lot less votes in that category. And some people are attributing it to foreign policy and also what they've, happened in Gaza, because that segment of the population, that those young voters, care more about that issue than other categories. And that actually made a big difference in states like Michigan and Pennsylvania. So even though, of course, Gaza and the genocide that's happening there was not the only issue, I felt like it was one of the contributing factors to their defeat, especially in states like Michigan. And, the polls had her up in Michigan, but she was defeated there. I don't know if you felt the same way, that the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Of course, we say Gaza in Arabic, it's Gaza. In English, they say Gaza. So sometimes it's interchangeable. But did you feel like so it wasn't just the Muslim and Arab vote that was impacted. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but just a general vote of young people. Gaza turned out to be something that's important to them, and they reacted accordingly.
I would agree with you, Ahmed, when it comes to the young people, because a vote for Trump does not necessarily in agreement with all his policies, or as much as they want to make sure that the same administration that didn't care about the Arab vote or the Muslim vote or the Palestinian vote and refused to meet with any representative of the mass voters who cared about Palestine and Gaza and what is going on. So it might be not necessarily a vote of confidence for Trump as much as making sure that this administration that has financed the genocide is not going to continue financing the genocide. Especially, for instance, I remember vividly, she was on The View and she was asked, so what is it that you're going to be doing different than the Biden administration? And she said, oh, nothing comes to mind. So she's not offering anything new for young people, maybe, or everyone will have his own reasons why he didn't vote for Kamala and why he voted for Trump. But not every vote for Trump necessarily means in support of Trump. Correct. As much as in defiance of Kamala. But I think, Ahmed, we will need more time to really analyze and study to what degree Gaza played a factor. But maybe it is in the larger context of Americans are sick and tired of financing wars.
Yeah, and he depicted himself as anti-war. Like, it seems like things flipped around. Kamala is going around campaigning with Liz Cheney, one of the most hawkish pro-war members of Congress on the far right. Of course, she differed with Trump on some things, but this is the daughter of Dick Cheney, another neocon war hawk, and she embraces his ideology, says she talks to her father daily, but she's going on the campaign trail, and both Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney, one of the most pro-war politicians of our time, are going around with Kamala Harris trying to convince voters in states like Michigan, Pennsylvania to vote for her, while Trump is saying, hey, Liz Cheney is a war hawk, and she just wants to go to war. She wants to, bomb everybody. And this is her father that destroyed the Middle East. And he's saying, I'm going to stop wars. It was just crazy. It's like they swapped places.
Takes her to an area where you have 165,000 Iraqis living. Like, who was advising these people? Like, how could... there are at least 1 million Iraqi civilians dead because of Cheney.
Of Dick Cheney, yeah, Liz Cheney's father. So even if those people hate Trump, but they definitely hate somebody that destroyed their country and bombed their people even more, like Dick Cheney. So, like you said, it's going to need a lot more analysis, a lot more data, a lot more research, but a combination of all those factors, especially, foreign policy, because there was a lot of exit polling. And 18 to 29 vote was critical. They came out in large numbers. And that segment, the issues that they cared about, being, of course, the economy, but one of them was foreign policy. And foreign policy, the New York Times called it foreign policy, but really that foreign policy was Gaza. So that's one of the top issues. But I remember early on in the campaign, even when Biden, before Harris was swapped in as the candidate, and the Biden administration refused to address or try to at all change their rhetoric or their policies about arming Israel, in the ongoing genocide in Gaza. And one of the reasons the Democratic pundits or strategists kept repeating is, well, the American public and the voters, they don't really care about Gaza. And they kept showing that the young people and people on, because, there was a wave of the campus encampments and protests that were happening. And they kept providing polling that shows that young people and students don't care about Gaza. It's not a top issue for them, that it's really not that important. It's not a factor in who they support this coming election. But that turned out to all be wrong. The reality is it was a factor. It was one of the top 5 issues, and it made a difference. So just like I felt Biden's polling or likability was going downhill, especially among his base, the liberal base and the progressives. And that's one of the reasons people were not excited about him. He ended up having to leave. I think Gaza played a role in that. And I also believe that the Gaza genocide played a role in Harris's defeat. A lot of people are pointing fingers. Some of them are blaming Biden himself and saying that Biden threw Kamala over a glass cliff and he should have pulled out earlier. He's the one to blame. The reality is Kamala, she just basically continued the policies of Biden and would not distance herself or pivot away from him, and kept saying that she's not going to do anything really that different and to continue the current policies. But the electorate as a whole was felt like they're anti-establishment. They don't like the direction of the country, and they want change. So of the two options, Harris represented continuing the status quo, keeping things as is, and Trump represented change. As much as even people may not like who he is, but he was the only vehicle that is promising to disrupt. And even though they may not have agreed with all his rhetoric and policies and hate and discrimination and misogyny, yet they want change. They feel like this government, and for the past maybe 10 years, 20 years, hasn't been working for them, regardless of who's in office. And Trump is seen as not only anti-democratic establishment, he's also anti-Republican establishment. So they see him as some sort of disruptor. Some people say like a bull in a china shop. They think this china shop should just be dismantled or destroyed and start all over. People really feel like their government is not working for them, and who could blame them? When you look at both sides are pretty much in the pockets of the corporations, whether it's the Republicans talking about the establishment, and whoever's in office is more loyal to the billionaire class and the corporations than they are to the people. And you can't really see a big difference between both sides except on social cultural issues like abortion, LGBTQ, and that basically came down to that. That's really, when you look at the Democrats, the establishment, that's what they've been talking about instead of bread and butter issues, economy, the inflation, how it's impacting people's lives, etc.
Actually, Ahmed, I want to read to you a tweet I put in the Arabic language. I think it addresses what you have just said about the wealth increase between November 5 and November 6. Okay? Like 2 days ago. Elon Musk only, his wealth increased 10%. His wealth is $290 billion.
After the election results.
After the election results, just him, he made $26.5 billion in one day. Jeff Bezos' wealth increased 3%. I think only Mark Zuckerberg is the only one whose wealth didn't.
Because Trump has been saying that Facebook is the enemy or something.
He's the only one. So Larry Ellison, 5.4%, around $10 billion. The only guy who lost money is the French guy of the Louis Vuitton. I really have no idea, but he lost like billions. I have no clue why. Bill Gates from Microsoft, 1.2% of his $100 $159 billion. So you have like 10 people who made billions, except for Mark Zuckerberg and the French guy of Louis Vuitton. So, like you said, Ahmed, if you look at the polling that the media maybe do not concentrate on, like it's the economy, it's the
Right.
economy, the economy. And like I think what you were explaining, because I saw your interview on Al Jazeera English, the establishment, this government, the government, not control as much as the lack of change, whether you are a Republican or a Democrat. And it doesn't mean that Trump is going to change anything. Because, for instance, Ahmed, I was looking at a report that Trump promised to increase tariffs on imported goods. But for God's sake, half of what we eat and drink and consume is imported from outside the US.
Right.
So that means somebody
Higher prices.
It's going to be an average for an average household. It's $2,600 more to pay on top of what more you are paying now, because those countries will increase maybe our tariffs on our imports going to their countries. But also, if I am a shop and I have to sell you cheese that is foreign, I'm going to increase the prices. So, but it's like you said, people
Are they going to
sometimes,
put tariffs on cheese? Because I like cheese, especially.
yeah, if anything, this is what he promised. But this is one thing. So it doesn't mean that he will deliver anything, because he also,
Well, he's going to have the Senate. They have the Senate now, and the House they haven't ruled. It's still being calculated. It may be 1 or 2 weeks before we find out who controls the House. But the Democrats lost the White House. They lost the Senate, and now they may even lose the House. Do you think that there's going to be any self-reflection, like, hey, guys, maybe we're doing something wrong. Maybe we need to change our strategy or our policies? Because, again, this feels like 2016. And, the candidate for change within the Democrats was Bernie Sanders. And just as a disclosure, I was I was involved in the Bernie Sanders campaign. I was a delegate for him. I believed that, he was offering some change, and it really resonated with Democrats. But the establishment, we know what happened. The Clinton people and the establishment within the party strangled that campaign, contained it, rigged the vote somehow. And Hillary came on top, and she eventually lost. And now, again, it's the same people that pushed Hillary Clinton are the same people that pushed for Harris. It's the same establishment, and they've sidelined Bernie Sanders, the Bernie Sanders camp, and that whole wing. And again, they lost again. When will there be any type of self-reflection to say, hey, well, maybe it's time to change the leadership of this Democratic Party to be more in line with what the people want and what the base wants? Because they seem to be out of touch with the base. 70% of Democrats want to stop arming Israel in the genocide. Yet the establishment, the elites within the Democratic Party, are the ones that are denying this. They are the ones that are getting in the way. They are not reflecting what the people on the ground want. And when you try to challenge, whether at the local level or at the state level or even at the national level, it seems like they've rigged the rules in certain ways to make it very difficult and make it undemocratic for anyone else to be able to have change or overhaul this Democratic Party. Case in point is how they picked Harris. She was just, appointed instead of having an open convention. She was just chosen by the leadership.
Ahmed, I think you raised also in the middle of what you were saying a very important point, and I really want to address that. The reaction, you asked, will there be reflection? The knee-jerk reaction from people on Twitter, because you know how much I am there, from supporters of Harris and Republicans, coming at me and people like us, although I publicly do not mention if I'm going to vote for this or that. I don't do these. but saying, oh, okay, now we'll see how he will wipe Gaza out. Now you will see how he will turn it to a parking lot. Now we will see how Trump is going to finish the job really quickly and support Netanyahu. Like, excuse me?
As if you're to blame. As if you're to blame for what happened.
Yeah, why aren't you like taking a moment to think of what you are saying? Why this hateful language? You keep pointing fingers at Trump supporters and say they are hateful, they are ugly, they say bad things. You are doing the same to me. Oh, I have nothing to do with that. You don't even know what is my vote. Why are you blaming Arabs?
I think they're trying to blame because they saw some segments like in Dearborn, in the most populated Arab and Muslim city in America, the majority of the votes there, and in the past they've always voted for the Democrat and for Biden. They completely flipped, and Trump surprisingly won the majority of votes out of Dearborn, because they voted against Harris. But that same community, interestingly enough, did not do that down ballot. They did that for the president, but when it came for their congressional candidate, Rashida Tlaib, it was the other way around. Rashida in Dearborn, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, she got double the number of votes than Kamala Harris. So even though they're both in the same party, so it's more about the policies. It's not like these people just abandoned the Democratic Party. Yeah, but it was something against Harris because, one, Harris refused to go to Dearborn at all. Trump actually went there and tried to court the people and said, I'm going to bring peace for people that are tired of the war. So it's not, and then, so I think they're trying to say, because there were stories that in some communities, Arabs and Muslims voted for Trump, that somehow they want to lash out at the Arabs and Muslims over Gaza. But guess what? If all the Arabs, and Muslims in Michigan, and all the people that voted for Jill Stein, all voted for Harris, she would have still lost. Because one of the things they kept saying was, if you vote third party, if you vote for Jill Stein, that's a vote for Trump. However, if you calculate nationwide even, if you calculate all the votes of all the third-party candidates together, you're talking about Jill Stein, Oliver, even RFK, who was no longer in the race but was still on the ballot, and anyone else. If you calculate all the third-party together combined, if they all voted for Harris, she would have still lost. That's how bad the loss was.
And also Ilhan Omar won. So it seems... like you were saying, Rashida and Ilhan, they won by very comfortable margins. At the same time, the rest of candidates are fighting for their lives. But
one more thing, Samar, I just wanted to point out on that note. I was watching an expert talk. I think it might have been on Democracy Now!, basically pointing out that all the congressional candidates that stood against and spoke out against the genocide in Gaza and were vocal, there aren't that many. In their general election, they all won comfortably. They did not lose. So the idea that somehow, if you speak out for Gaza, that will hurt you in the general election, that did not happen. Like you mentioned, Rashida, Ilhan, Samar Lee, they all won their elections, and actually by way margin. So on one hand, Harris lost, right? But that did not translate to losses for those that within her party, Democrats, who were vocally in support of ending the genocide and speaking out against Israel. Those people won. Harris lost. So that should offer some self-reflection that, hey, maybe the Rashida and the Ilhan and the Samar Lee wing have something that the voters want, and especially when it comes to foreign policy. Now, the people that they were able to defeat, the AIPAC and the pro-Israel lobby, they were able to defeat Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush, but that did not happen in the general election. That happened in the primary by AIPAC recruiting other Democrats to run against the incumbent Democrat to kick them out of office and pumping millions and millions of dollars, and sometimes 5-1, 10-1, as far as the funding to defeat Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush And they were not defeating them on a message that, oh, they're pro-Palestine. They were smearing them with other tactics about local issues. So the point that I'm trying to make is standing up against genocide is actually a winning policy, and those that stood up against the genocide actually won their election. Those that enabled the genocide, like Harris, ended up losing. Of course, that wasn't the only reason. There are a number of them, but that's an important criteria. And I think it should motivate more Democrats to be vocal against the genocide and against arming Israel to continue the genocide.
Let me just remind our listeners, this is True Talk on WMNF 88.5 FM. My co-host Ahmed Bedier and myself, Samar Jarrah, are discussing the result of the elections from our perspective as American Arabs. Ahmed of Egyptian origin, I am of Palestinian origin. We are both Muslim. We are also, Ahmed, maybe in the last few minutes we can talk about what is being said in Arabic in the Arab world, because it's quite interesting. But I just want to address a tweet by David Korn, who's a DC bureau chief of Mother Jones and an MSNBC analyst. He came back to say, oh gosh, you misunderstood this tweet of mine, where he was responding to the fact that somebody was saying how much Trump won in Michigan. So one was showing this image of Trump getting 60% of Latino votes in Michigan versus 35% Latino votes in the same state. So David Korn says perhaps massive deportations will affect how they see Trump. They need really, like you said, if they want to salvage the Democratic Party and salvage and think, okay, what can we do after the 4 years, how can we defeat, because I am sure his vice president will be running for office. They really need to do reflections. There is another point, Ahmed. I just read a statistic that says 79% of Jewish votes went to Kamala. And this is something that has not happened, statistically speaking, for 24 years. So this is also another thing that should be reflective.
What is the point of that? What is the reflection?
So many people are standing with genocide, voted for her.
Right. Because so the pro-Israel people are standing with Harris, is what you're saying. Or yes, voted for Harris and lost. Of course, people are reporting, though, that Netanyahu's and people, the right wing in Israel, are celebrating Trump's win. I don't know if, if that's consensus there, because I've also read before the election that some within Israel are a little concerned if by Trump's win, because he's been saying he wants to end the war. And maybe we can shift to that. What do you think is going to happen now that Trump won? And do you think that the Gaza genocide will continue under his leadership? Is he going to just, as some of these Democrat activists are saying online, wait until Trump turns it into a parking lot, turns Gaza into a parking lot, which, by the way, a lot of activists, Palestinians, pro-Palestinians responded, or what they call, clap back, to say, well, Gaza is already a parking lot now and has been under Biden and Harris for quite some time. Aren't you paying attention? One account tweeted back showing an image of a baby's foot in the rubble, and responding saying Gaza has turned into a cemetery under Biden. So forget about parking lot; it's already a cemetery now. I don't know if these people that are saying these things, like you said, were not paying attention or what, but Gaza, the genocide is continuing, has been under this administration. But what do you think is going to happen now moving forward?
I just want to say something. I don't think they care for us when we have a different opinion, Ahmed.
Who's they? care for us.
Like you say, or these Democrats, for instance, who are saying you're going to see what Trump is going to do to you. He's going to turn it into a parking lot. They do care about us when we are on the same page, but if we have a different opinion, all of a sudden they remember that we can be deported, and we are the other, and we are brown.
But you and I mean, it's not like we are pro-Trump. We're just saying, hey.
Absolutely not.
It's like they equate criticism of somehow that you're being with the other side. No, okay, own up to your own mistakes. Not. Why aren't you blaming white women and white men who voted for Trump? I mean, Harris barely won the white women vote, but not by a huge margin as she did with the black women. And white men, I mean, overwhelmingly for Trump. Why aren't you blaming the young vote? They're out of touch, and they want to just blame everyone but their own selves and their own policies, that they don't want to talk about the issues that are really impacting everyday people. And they need that self-reflection. You know what? When you mess up at a job, you usually get fired. Let's just see how many people are going to get fired from this political establishment. I think that they'll probably likely, do everything they can to remain in power to lead the Democrats. But let's just get back to this topic before we end up. And by the way, we want to take some phone calls at the end to get some reaction. So if you want to call in, you can call in live at 813-239-9663, 813-239-9663, or you could email us at dj@wmnf.org, dj at wmnf.org. But please answer that question. I want to read a couple of emails. What do you think is going to happen that Trump is now won the election when it comes to Gaza?
I think he will find a way to cut a deal, as he likes to use this word. I think he will try to stop it somehow. It doesn't mean it's going to be to the advantage of the Palestinians. It doesn't mean that he will be pursuing two-state solution. I don't expect anything, to be honest with you, very positive from Trump. However, I think you and I had this conversation. He might actually the idea of Israel annexing the West Bank. It's already under total occupation. So just give it another name. And this would put Palestine in new perspective, because this idea of milking the two-state solution, I mean, every time I hear two-state solution, I want to really don't want to say.
You want to puke? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, is that a okay word? I'm not sure.
Yeah, puke is okay for the air. Okay. Vomit. Now,
so really, it's dead. So
not that, because just to clarify to people, you're not against it because you're against people having their own states, but you're saying that because it's a facade. It's not possible anymore. They're just using it as an excuse to just further, as if somehow there's hope for it, but it's non-existent. It can never happen anymore because of how much land Israel has already taken and occupied and built settlements all over the land. If there's a two-state solution, the land of the Palestinians is all populated now with Israeli settlers, right? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. It's worse than Swiss cheese. It's hopeless. There is nothing called two-state solution. So it's indicative of how the Democratic Party, and before it, of course, the Republican Party, always sell this idea of two-state solution, which is undoable and unattainable and too late to do it. So maybe really we have to face the reality that there is an apartheid state. There is a law. If you are Jewish, you are protected under it, and any person and any property that is not Jewish is going to be living under a different set of laws, and you can be killed, and anything can happen to you.
Let me read this message from DeMarco, who said he basically sent a screenshot to a text message he sent to the Kamala campaign. Of course, I'm sure you've gotten all these text messages, in the past couple of months from the campaigns trying to get you to go vote for them. So he sent a message, and he sent me the screenshot of it. And this is back from October. He sent a message saying, if you stop funding genocide, I'll support. And he says, if you lose this election, it's because you're funding genocide to protect apartheid. All you have to do is announce that you will change policy and stop arming Israel. If you lose, it will be because of your arrogance, and you will deserve it. We don't deserve to have you risk U.S. democracy to continue funding genocide. And in the comment today, he's saying, when he copied this message, he said, he or she, I don't know their gender, about Harris. Harris allowed Trump to be the peace candidate, which is a sick and twisted joke, because she's arming Israel, promising to arm Israel, said build the most lethal military in the world at the convention. And somehow Trump pivoted and said, hey, I'm going to bring peace. I'm going to stop the wars. I'm not going to start new wars. Of course, and he's saying it's a twisted joke that that's the case, but all she had to do is say, when it comes to foreign policy, that I'll stop arming Israel. I want peace, not war. And things might be different. I have Betty called, and she's been on for a long time. I'm going to take her phone call, and if you want to join in, you can call 813-239-9663, 813-239-9663, or you could email DJ@WMNF. Betty, sorry you've been on hold for so long. Thank you for joining. You're on True Talk right now. Go ahead, Betty. Betty, are you still there? I think she was on for so long that she might have left. Hello, Betty. Okay, well, maybe we'll go back to Betty later. Mike from Sarasota, go ahead.
Hey, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I wanted to respond to your comments about the Latin vote in this election.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was listening to NPR this morning, and they said that one of the surprising aspects of this new election, of this latest election, was the big support from Latin males, the unexpectedly large support from Latin males that Trump got.
Mm-hmm.
And this has sparked me to thinking two things. I mentioned two other things. One, my friends in the black activist community have often complained to me how the Latinos don't really seem to ally with them. Mm. And then my final point here, and I don't expect that you can possibly agree with this, but I think that there's a sense of machismo in the in the Latin male community, which was pretty famous. And I think Trump, as we all know, had kind of a bro, very aggressive approach later on. He was trying to appeal to the bro culture. Yeah. So I think that Latin male machismo thing may have allowed a lot of Latin males to go switch over to the Trump campaign. Yeah. But
this same bro mentality or feelings are even more prominent within the white community. I mean, the white bros are the biggest segment that went with Trump, right?
Well, I'm not.
So it's not just exclusive. It's not just exclusive to Latin. It's just the difference this time is even minority groups like Black and Latin also shifted over in bigger numbers. And
that was the other thing that NPR said, that the other group that really came out in this election much stronger than they have in the past was the white community. Mm-hmm. The white community was overrepresented compared to the last election. Right. So I it may be, and again, I can't expect you to agree with this, but that this election was a lot about racial division here. It was white. They perceived Kamala as kind of a black candidate, and there was a white reaction.
But that doesn't explain why Latin and black men also shifted.
That's where I get into the machismo thing amongst Latin males. Now,
but I think in a way that I may not agree with you there, but thanks for calling in, Mike, for offering that. That some are the Democrats are trying to paint this that America's still racist, and that's why they did not choose a black woman. America is still misogynist, that's why they didn't choose a woman, and that's the reason. They don't necessarily want to make the connection that this is about policy. And, Bernie Sanders issued a statement saying that how does the party expect How does a party, the Democratic Party, who abandoned the working class, expect the working class not to abandon them? And I think, I agree with that more than just that there's a racial divide. Of course, there's a racial divide, and a lot of the segment that voted with Trump, his base, there is that racial and supremacy type part of that coalition. But others that join that are not racist, blue collar people that don't think their government is working for them, people that the economy is not working for them, they are disenfranchised, and they feel like the party that they've been behind for so many years that's supposed to stand up for their rights have shifted over, and now they're with the corporations. Even unions were split, and you can't say the unions that supported Barack Obama, who is black, are now somehow switched sides because Kamala is no, it's that segment, part of that those people that shifted is because of other issues. And I happen to agree more on the side of Bernie Sanders. But I also think that the foreign policy elements when it comes to Gaza and, spending billions of dollars, sending billions of dollars of weapons to kill women and children in Gaza, instead of spending it here at home to help everyday American. I think people are tired of that. Even Ukraine, they're tired of spending so much money overseas on these military, supporting militaries and American, what they think is American, what some call American imperialism, while ignoring the spending here at home, while infrastructure and healthcare and people can't afford groceries, they can't buy houses, the rent has skyrocketed, and you're still sending billions overseas. I think people, so the coalition that came together to support Trump, it's not necessarily all because they like Trump, and it's not because they're all racist, and it's not because they're all misogynist. Sure, there may be, in my opinion, elements of that are supporting, but there are others. He wouldn't have been able to win just with that. The
easy way out is to use labeling, racist, narcissist, evangelical. They want, they support him. Like you said, he's a vehicle to so many people. But for instance, Ahmed, I know a couple of Muslims who voted for him simply because of the Democratic Party always talking about quote unquote cultural wars. There are people who think that this nonstop talking about gender issues or about bathrooms and transgender, there are people who genuinely are afraid from a religious point of view, from a Muslim point of view, when it comes to their children and what they are exposed to at the school system, whether you like it or not. These are factors out there. So is this Muslim racist? Is this Muslim in support of the policies of Trump? No, he just picked one thing that is most important to him.
Right.
I would say.
And I think Trump was savvy enough to know that these are things people are disgruntled about. And he spoke about them. And whether he believes in them or not, they resonate and said, oh, okay, well, I'm going to get behind them about this issue. I want to read a message from Alexandra, who said, hello, I agree with both your comments. I believe she abandoned the voters she was taking for granted. She failed to distance herself from Biden on the economy and the Middle East. I don't know if you saw the Intercept article in which a Muslim speaker was booted from the convention without explanation. Yes, we saw that in Michigan. His name was Ahmed Ghanem. And he was immediately courted by Trump to be a main spokesperson. That says it all. Also, she spoke about women's rights here while defending Israel's massacre of mothers and children. And she says, thank you for your show. That's Alex. Thank you for listening. And here's another message. Oh, this says you missed a call. I don't think we have enough time for any more calls, Samar. If you didn't get a chance, you could email us your comments at truetalk@wmnf.org. truetalk@wmnf.org. And maybe we could read them on the air. Samar and I check that email address often, and we can maybe reply to you. Samar, there's only about a minute left, and then we're going to go to the scoop, and then it's NPR. I think in the immediate future, things are going to get kind of bad in Gaza. I think Netanyahu and Israel will take advantage of the transition period where people are busy between administrations, and they're going to try to cause as much destruction, grab as much land as possible in Gaza and southern Lebanon, and to, annex those areas and maybe say the excuse is that they want a buffer zone, and try to change the realities, the facts on the ground as much as possible before the inauguration. But I believe they'll wrap it up before the inauguration because Netanyahu wants to gift this to Trump, that somehow he's the one that was able to stop the war and that he doesn't have to inherit this genocide that's going on. So Trump can say, look, I'm already starting on this, because he doesn't want this headache when he starts. And he'll probably go back to the normalization and try to push Saudi and other Arab states to normalize with Israel. But we'll talk more about this. This is WMNF Tampa. The Scoop is next. Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay safe.